My wife asked for an open marriage after surviving cancer. When I said no, she secretly started sleeping with multiple men behind my back. Now she's calling it a mistake, but I don't think our marriage can survive the betrayal. Hello, Reddit I plus here. My wife said beating cancer made her want to sleep with other men. I thought it was just trauma until everything around me started changing. I never imagined the worst conversation of my marriage would begin with my wife holding my hand. I'm 36 years old. My wife, Holly, is 34. We've been together for 9 years and married for 6. Until recently, I would have told anyone we had the kind of marriage people hoped for. We weren't wealthy, we weren't glamorous, but we laughed a lot, argued like normal people, and always found our way back to each other. Last year changed everything. Holly was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. Hearing those words felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. Every appointment, every surgery, every treatment became my life too. I drove her to every hospital visit, slept in uncomfortable chairs beside her bed, and used nearly all of my vacation days just to be with her. When her hair fell out, I shaved my head. When she cried because she thought I deserved someone healthier, I reminded her that I had married her, not her illness. The doctors finally declared her cancer-free 11 months later. I cried harder than I ever had in my entire life. I thought we had beaten the hardest battle we'd ever face. I couldn't have been more wrong. About 3 months after she was declared cancer-free, Holly asked if we could talk after dinner. She looked nervous. I need you to promise you'll hear me out before you answer. I smiled. After everything we've survived, you can tell me anything. She stared into her coffee for nearly a minute before finally speaking. When I thought I was dying, I realized how many experiences I'll never have. I reached for her hand. I know. That's why I've been looking into travel packages. We can finally take that trip to Italy you've always wanted. She slowly shook her head. It's not about traveling. Something in my stomach tightened. What is it then? She took a deep breath. I want to experience other people. I frowned. What do you mean? I want to sleep with other men. The room became so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming. I honestly thought I'd misunderstood her. She repeated herself. I still love you. I don't want a divorce. I just don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what I missed. It felt like every memory we'd built together shattered in a single sentence. I asked quietly, so, you're asking for permission to cheat? No. She looked offended. I'm asking for an open marriage. I couldn't even process the words after everything we'd survived. After every night, I wondered if she'd live to see another morning. This was what she wanted. I tried to stay calm. I love you more than anyone on this planet. I know. I don't want anyone else. I know. I couldn't survive watching another man touch my wife. She looked disappointed. You don't understand what it's like to almost die. No, I swallowed hard. But I know what it feels like to almost lose you. She started crying. She said surviving cancer had changed her completely. She said life was too short for limits. She said she needed to feel alive again. I told her I understood wanting adventure. I understood wanting freedom. But I couldn't stay married to someone who wanted other partners. If that's the life you need, I paused, then we'll have to separate. She quickly shook her head. No, I don't want to lose you. Then this conversation is over. For a moment, I thought we'd reached an understanding. I wish that had been true, because that conversation wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Over the next month, little things started changing. At first, they seemed harmless. Holly suddenly became obsessed with shopping. She bought dresses she'd never have worn before. Designer perfume she'd always said was overpriced. New heels, new jewelry. She spent almost an hour getting ready for work every morning. Before cancer, she'd barely worn makeup, except for weddings. Now she looked like she was heading to a photo shoot. I tried convincing myself she was rebuilding her confidence. She deserved to feel beautiful again, didn't she? Then the late nights started. First once a week, then twice. Eventually 3 or 4 nights. Every excuse sounded reasonable. Client dinners, project deadlines, team meetings, office celebrations. One Thursday, she walked through the front door wearing a black cocktail dress. She had left that morning wearing business clothes. I looked up from the couch. Didn't know your office suddenly became formal? She froze. Oh, she laughed awkwardly. We had an awards banquet. I thought you said today was a budget meeting. Her smile flickered. They added the banquet afterward. I nodded. Maybe she was telling the truth, maybe. But something felt off. Then I noticed something else. Whenever we went out together, she barely touched her makeup. But whenever she said she was meeting coworkers, she looked absolutely flawless. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. Soon our weekends changed too. I'd suggest breakfast dates. She already had plans, movie night, too tired, a hike, maybe another weekend. But somehow she always found energy to leave the house for hours afterward. One afternoon, she came home smiling. You'll never believe what happened. What? A guy at the bookstore asked for my number. I chuckled. So what did you say? I told him I was married. She grinned. But it felt nice. I smiled back, at least I tried to, because she kept talking. He was really handsome too. That part stung, a lot. Then she started mentioning men constantly: the new manager at work, the trainer at the gym, the barista who remembered her coffee order, the waiter who complimented her dress. She never crossed a line. But every conversation somehow found its way back to another man noticing her. I began wondering if she wanted me to feel jealous, or guilty, or both. I couldn't tell anymore. The woman I'd fought to save suddenly felt like a stranger living in my house, and I had no idea whether I was losing my mind or losing my marriage. The truth was worse than I imagined. I barely slept that night. Those two messages replayed in my head over and over. Today was perfect. Can't wait until next weekend. Miss you already. Every explanation I came up with fell apart almost immediately. If it was one of her girlfriends, why was the conversation hidden under an unsaved number? Why lie about taking the day off? Why had she suddenly become so desperate to open our marriage? The next morning, Holly acted like everything was normal. She kissed my cheek before leaving for work. I love you. For the first time in our marriage, I couldn't bring myself to say it back. Instead, I simply nodded. Over the next 2 weeks, I stopped asking questions. Instead, I started paying attention. Every Friday, she claimed she had late meetings. Every other Saturday, she suddenly had girls' trips. She guarded her phone like it contained state secrets. If I walked into the room unexpectedly, she'd flip it over. If it buzzed, she'd excuse herself to answer it. She wasn't even trying to hide that she was hiding something. One Thursday afternoon, while cleaning the kitchen, I noticed an envelope sticking out of her work bag. It was a receipt from a luxury hotel nearly 40 minutes from where we lived. 2 guests, weekend package, champagne included. The date matched one of the weekends she'd told me she was attending a work conference. I just stood there holding the receipt. I wasn't even angry anymore. I felt numb. That evening, I called my older sister. She listened quietly while I explained everything. When I finished, she sighed. You already know the truth. I don't want to. I know. What if I'm wrong? Then you'll apologize. And if I'm right? She was silent for several seconds. Then you'll finally stop blaming yourself. The following Saturday, Holly packed an overnight bag. Conference again? I asked. She smiled. Unfortunately, I wished her a safe trip. The moment her car disappeared, I grabbed my keys. I followed from a distance. She didn't drive toward the business district. She drove in the opposite direction, straight to the same hotel listed on the receipt. I parked across the street. 20 minutes later, another car pulled in. A man climbed out, tall, athletic, maybe early 40s. He walked over smiling before Holly even opened her door. They hugged, not the quick hug friends give each other, the kind couples share after missing one another. Then they kissed, slowly, comfortably, like they'd done it 100 times before. I couldn't breathe. For several seconds, I honestly thought I was going to pass out. She wasn't experimenting with life. She wasn't searching for herself. She was having an affair, right in front of me. I drove home in complete silence. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I simply accepted that my marriage had ended before I'd even known it. Instead of confronting her immediately, I contacted a divorce attorney Monday morning. He gave me one piece of advice. Don't make emotional decisions. Make informed ones. So I started gathering every document I could find: bank statements, credit card bills, phone records, insurance paperwork. The deeper I looked, the worse everything became. There wasn't just one hotel. There were 6. There wasn't just one man. There were several different names attached to restaurant reservations, event tickets, and travel bookings. She hadn't started cheating after surviving cancer. She had simply stopped caring whether I discovered it. Suddenly, her request for an open marriage made perfect sense. She hadn't wanted permission to begin. She wanted retroactive approval for what she'd already been doing. That realization hurt more than anything else. She had looked me in the eyes while I blamed myself. She had watched me apologize. She had allowed me to think I was insecure and controlling, all while she was betraying me behind my back. The attorney advised me to wait until every financial document had been copied. Once everything was ready, I moved half of our joint savings into an account in my name, exactly as my attorney instructed. I rented a small apartment across town. Then I waited. The opportunity came a week later. Holly texted me that she'd be working late. Instead, I knew exactly where she was, at the same hotel with another man. While she was gone, I packed every one of my belongings, not hers, mine. When I finished, I placed a single envelope on the kitchen table. Inside were copies of the hotel receipts, photographs of her entering the hotel with different men, and the divorce papers. On the last page, I wrote only one sentence. You didn't survive cancer so you could truly start living. You survived, and then you chose to destroy the people who loved you most. I locked the front door behind me and drove away. I ignored every call, every text, every voicemail. By morning, she'd called more than 60 times. Her messages shifted from confusion to anger, to begging. She insisted the affairs didn't mean anything. She claimed surviving cancer had made her reckless. She promised therapy. She promised she'd end every relationship. She promised we'd travel together like we'd always planned. The heartbreaking part was that 6 months earlier, I would have believed every word. Now they sounded like panic from someone who had finally run out of lies. Our divorce took nearly 8 months. During mediation, she admitted she had been seeing other men for months before asking for an open marriage. She'd hoped I would agree, so she wouldn't have to feel guilty. When I refused, she simply continued in secret. Hearing her admit it out loud brought an unexpected feeling, not satisfaction, not revenge, relief, because for nearly a year, I'd questioned my own sanity. I'd convinced myself I was jealous, controlling, paranoid. In the end, my instincts had been trying to protect me all along. It's been almost 2 years now. I'm rebuilding my life one day at a time. The vacations I promised her, I've started taking them on my own. The places we dreamed about together are still beautiful. They're just missing the person I thought would always be standing beside me. Sometimes surviving the hardest chapter of your life doesn't guarantee everyone around you grows with you. Sometimes it simply reveals who they truly are.